Today's Monday, November 12th, and these are my NHL picks. Let's jump right in. Joe Holka here. Welcome to another daily fantasy sports and betting video. If this is your first time here and you want to be a profitable DraftKings player and get better at betting, definitely start by subscribing to the channel now and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos that come out throughout the week. If you want to take that a step further, definitely check out the description below. Have a link to the Discord channel as well as the Twitch channel. And that's where a lot of the live streams are going to be taking place throughout the week. So if you want to be a part of the community, want to get a little bit more involved, definitely check out the Discord and Twitch. So today we're going to dive into my favorite DraftKings plays as well as the tiers options. We had a couple requests actually to bring the tiers back to the video. So it looks like you guys kind of like that format. So excited to jump in. All right, only 4 games today. One that definitely stands out to me is Carolina versus Chicago. Both these teams have a system that really revolves around shooting the puck, which sets up really well for DraftKings. As you can see, both teams haven't scored a ton of goals yet, though, so they are shooting a lot. So it could be a situation where we just get some value from these guys in DFS for some shots. But as far as the goals are considered, it looks like Nashville does lead the slate as far as their goal expectation. If we just look at the Corsi for, it's really not surprising to see Carolina at the top for those same reasons. Defensively, if we just look at that, Chicago's kind of middle of the pack as far as what they've been allowing, but they have allowed a ton of goals. So I mentioned that they haven't scored a lot as far as the Carolina side of things. I definitely think that could change tonight against Chicago. Really strong matchup as far as the goals against, which sets up really well. As far as teams that give up a lot of shots, we always talk about this with Anaheim. I would imagine that there's going to be some prop opportunities in this game just because of how much the Ducks give up on the defensive side of the puck. Same thing with the New York Rangers. So it's kind of a nice slate when you think about it as far as the matchups are concerned for Corsi and for shots. We do have the Rangers and the Ducks to attack with both Vancouver and Nashville. So I would imagine that Carolina is going to be one of the top teams for implied totals just because of how many goals that Chicago has been giving up. But let's check out some Vegas lines and see if we uncovered anything here. All right, going to go position by position per usual, and the guy that I want to talk about first is Tyler Seguin. He's been really struggling to score goals until recently. He's scored back-to-back games. He's always got that shot floor, 99th percentile in shots and shots plus blocks. Really like Seguin at 7.2. Today, he's really kind of more of a one-off play for me at this point. I don't know if he's a guy you really want to target as far as stacks. I think there's better spots tonight as far as matchups go, but Tyler Seguin as a one-off play definitely is one that I'm going to be prioritizing for sure at the center position. And if we just look a little bit cheaper, Mika Zibanejad at 7K. We were targeting him earlier in the year when his price was a little bit more palatable. So I don't love that, especially since Vancouver is in a really good spot on the other side of this game. But Zibanejad, 98th percentile in shots, 99th in shots plus blocks. He's right there with Tyler Seguin as one of the best center options on the night. The guy that I am prioritizing for sure, taking price into consideration, is Jared Stahl. So 5,300 for him. And his numbers don't jump off the page as far as his goal scoring and his assists, but look at these shots on goal, guys. So what I really like to talk about for the center position is Corsi, and he's in the 97th percentile in Corsi, one of the top guys on the entire slate in that category. So 5,300 for Stahl. He's going to be one of my cornerstones today for sure. Another guy, I feel like we talk about a lot of the same names on this show, but again, we're looking for shot volume. I think that Boone Jenner at 4,900 is someone that definitely stands out to me. At the center position, even just starting with Stahl and Jenner, you start with a ton of savings. 99th percentile in shots plus blocks for Boone Jenner as well. Really solid option. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on the center position because I do think there's some decent mid-range options. And then if you did want to pay up for Seguin or Zibanejad in tournaments, certainly think that makes a decent amount of sense. So at the winger position, one guy that always stands out is Patrick Kane. And it's interesting to see that he's on Taves' line currently. We'll have to keep an eye on this as the line is projected and not confirmed at this time. So keep an eye on news per usual. But 7,700, another option to pay up for, kind of in that Seguin range with a ton of upside. So 97th percentile in shots, 98th in Corsi. It is a pretty decent spot, but defensively, Carolina has been really strong. So I think that Kane's more of a tournament play for me today, but always carries this really solid floor. So thought I would mention him for sure. Another one that I do want to talk about is Philip Forsberg for Nashville. So I mentioned the spot for Nashville. It is a really good spot for shots on goal against this Anaheim Ducks team that just gives up a ton on the defensive end. So 7,300 for Forsberg, 95th percentile in shots. Another one of these goal scorers that's been kind of in a drought lately. I definitely expect that to correct at some point. So he's been a guy that can be extremely streaky at times. It's hurt him not having Arvidsson on this first line, but I definitely think this is a spot where he can get right. So I'm definitely looking into him. Two guys kind of in the mid-range that I think are interesting, at least. Justin Williams, sorry, with Jordan Staal. I think that these guys together make a lot of sense because you get a ton of savings and you do get that added correlation as well. If we just look at their power play lines, I think that there's a chance that this second unit for Carolina ends up in a lot of my stacks today because there is Dougie Hamilton as well. As we move over to kind of some of the defensive plays that I really like, I think that Dougie Hamilton is one of those guys that's always going to give you a really solid floor, 99th percentile in shots plus blocks. There's just a ton of savings available with some of these Carolina guys. I have a really hard time getting away from them in cash games, not just because of the matchup, just because of their system, like I talked about before. So definitely like him quite a bit. If we're just looking at some other plays in this game, Justin Falk, if he goes under-owned at 5,200, I definitely think he's a really solid kind of leverage play off of some of these other popular options on the second unit. Falk's going to be the cornerstone of that first power play unit up top. And a lot of his shots are coming on the power play per usual. I mean, he's in the 98th percentile in power play shots over the past month. So definitely someone that you want to target if you're kind of fading this other unit, I think. Because I would expect Staal to be extremely popular as well as Hamilton. So if you get on a lineup or maybe you're kind of going stars and scrubs, definitely think that Justin Falk makes some sense as more of a leverage play for these Carolina guys. So per usual, Roman Josi, I did mention the spot for Nashville earlier. Roman Josi just seems like a guy that's almost always underpriced. So I did mention Forsberg before. Same kind of thing as Falk. I definitely think you can roll Josi at 6,200 if you are kind of fading the other side of these Nashville players. I mean, look at the ceiling that he's shown. He's got a goal in 3 out of his last 4 games. At 6,200, definitely think that in this spot against Anaheim, he makes a ton of sense today. So I'm prioritizing Josi personally. But let's talk a little bit about value. The good news is we don't have to go too far. If just looking at players that are 4,500 and below, I think you can stick with Ryan Ellis on this unit with Josi. I think that both these guys together still make a lot of sense for floor, and you kind of get a decent salary saving option there relative to some of these other more expensive guys on the Predators like Philip Forsberg. So like him quite a bit. If we want to go over to the center position, definitely think there's a couple options that stand out over on the Carolina Hurricanes side of things. So if we just go back to their forward lines, Wallmark is a guy that we can consider if we're paying all the way down. So 3,200 is a fantastic value for a guy that had 8 shots in his last game. He's not getting a ton of time on ice, but 96th percentile in Corsi. Is a guy that if we want to pay all the way down to jam in some studs, I think at 3,200, he makes some sense. At the winger position, I do think that the best value is still in this game, and it's Andrei Svechnikov on the same line. So if you really wanted to get some savings playing Svechnikov as well as Wallmark on this third line for Carolina is going to give you an insane amount of savings, really allow you to get up to the Sagans and get up to some of these other studs that we've talked about. So that's kind of where I'm at for value, even though things are kind of thin this slate. All right, people demanded it. Let's talk some tiers. So for this first tier, I think it's pretty clear to me that I think we can just take the floor with Tyler Seguin. It's a really tough matchup for Kane against Carolina, like I've mentioned. I'm just not quite ready to go there with Pettersson. I think that he's a fine tournament play, but the floor that we get from Seguin, historically, he has scored 2 goals in his last game, so I think there's a good chance he keeps that rolling tonight. Seguin in Tier 1 for me, for sure in cash games. In Tier 2, I think it's really close between Mika Zibanejad and Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi. Like, this is the toughest tier, and obviously you're giving up some correlation with Sebastian Aho in tournaments if you don't roll him with the rest of your Carolina guys. So I think this is the toughest tier by far. In a vacuum, I do think Roman Josi is probably the safest just because it's such a good matchup against Anaheim, but some really good tournament options here. So I think I'm going to probably end up kind of splitting some of my exposures here with my stacks. In Tier 3, I'm kind of on Dougie Hamilton. I mentioned how much I like Carolina. It's kind of the theme of this entire video, I guess, but Dougie Hamilton, I think that he has the strongest floor. I think the best pivot in tournaments is probably Antoni Panarin. Jordan Staal is probably going to be my guy here just because of the volume that he's had as far as a shooter. But the thing is, guys, we need to try and figure out what we can do with stacks. So if you end up putting Staal with Aho, you're not going to be able to get some of these other stacks as well. So I think that Cam Atkinson and then Panarin together definitely makes some sense in tournaments. If we want to keep moving through here, tier 5, I think that Justin Falk, I did mention him before in tournaments. If you're not rolling a Carolina stack on your other tiers, definitely makes sense to get some exposure to Justin Falk and how he's being used on the power play. And then PK Subban as well, another high volume shooter that has a matchup against Anaheim that definitely has me interested. Tier 6, I definitely think is a little bit easier. I'm kind of on Boone Jenner in this range. I think the shot volume is super safe from him in tournaments. Ryan Johansson, not a guy I'm normally targeting for volume, but if you are rolling out some Nashville stacks, I definitely think that he's the guy you can go to as well. Not a ton else stands out to me in tier 6. If we move over to tier 7, definitely think Justin Williams, again, in my Carolina stacks, especially with my Staal stacks, I think he's going to be the guy in this tier for me, but there's a ton of other options that definitely make sense in tournaments. Ekholm, definitely someone that's going to give you some block shot volume as well, and give you a little bit of correlation with some of those other Nashville skaters. So definitely think he's in play. This is a pretty gross tier, only a 4-game slate. Kyle Turris in this matchup against Anaheim, he does have the highest shot prediction of the entire night, so I'd be surprised if he fell below two shots or so. I haven't projected at 2.5. No one else in this tier really is that close to that. So as far as some other tier 8 options, definitely think that there's a few other guys in play. Jordan Martinook, someone that you might be able to consider. Again, it's kind of thin, guys. I don't know if there's a lot here. So tier 8 most likely is going to be a correlation tier with me with some of these other cornerstone pieces that I've talked about. All right, guys, going to go ahead and end it there for today. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments what you think of today's 4-game slate. It is a smaller one, but try to touch on some tiers for you guys as well. And check out the live streams over on Twitch and definitely the Discord. So as things kind of come out as far as news, we're definitely going to talk about a little bit more about the slate as far as what I'm targeting as some things come through the newswire. I know this video comes out a couple hours before lock, but a lot can still change. So definitely come hang out with us in the Discord, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, good talk. See you guys out there.